Hi everyone, my name is Jason.
And I'm Lorraine.
And today is our first garden tour of the year, which is pretty exciting for us. This is a collaboration video with Homesteaders of America Conference. I'll put a link down in the show notes of all the other YouTube channels that are doing this collaboration with Homesteaders of America. We garden here in Western North Carolina on 2,400 square foot garden space. And we've been gardening in this space for about 4 years now. And it has grown in the 4 years that we have been here, bigger and bigger every single year. With the help of our greenhouse, we use the no-till garden system here, which we tilled the garden once as we started getting it going, and then now we don't till it at all. We just bring in compost every single year, and then also wood chips that we put down in the aisles to combat weeds, and then to help when it rains so we don't get flooded out.
Let's start over in the greenhouse, and that's where most of our plants get their start. So here we have a lot of our seed planting trays and soil blocks, and mostly everything is labeled, at least I know what it is. And right now we've got our warm weather plants just barely starting out. They're not ready to go out into the garden yet, not for another week. I've got tomatoes and peppers. Right now I'm growing some sage, and I'm trying to grow some of my herbs. And I'll show you where I'm keeping my herbs in just a little bit. And here I've got some cucumbers and some beans and okra and zucchinis and squashes. These are all getting their starts here in the greenhouse where it's warmer and we're avoiding the frost. I've got some more herbs here, like some dill, and then I've also got onions and leeks, and even some sunflowers here. Now my plan for this greenhouse is this year we are gonna grow all the peppers in this greenhouse. So we've already made beds and we've laid the soil down. Now we're just waiting for our last frost to get over, and we're gonna plant all of our pepper plants right here in these beds. And down here, I've got some oregano in a pot that's doing really well, and some lemon balm that I grew from last year's plant. I just divided it and put them into plants, and they're doing well. And I hope to give these away as gifts.
We made this water saving setup on our hoop house here, and the rain collects in here, drops in here in this barrel, and so that way we can utilize some of that rain to water in our greenhouse, which has been very handy because we have no water source out here, and so doing that I think helps.
Yes, I love it. One of the best things that you must have for your garden.
Hey guys, if you want plants for this greenhouse, I'll leave the link down where you could purchase the plants down in the show notes.
The first thing that I want to show you in our garden is our garlic. And this is the first thing that we planted, and we actually planted it last year. We planted this in November of last year, in 2019, and it's not ready to be harvested, but it looks fantastic. And it's going to grow scapes right in the middle of the plant. And we haven't had our first scape yet, so we know that it's not ready. You can eat these scapes, and that's actually the flowering part of the plant. I think we have about 50 heads of garlic growing here. We also had horseradish growing here. We just harvested it not too long ago, but we have another one here. So this is horseradish. I'm not sure when we'll harvest this, but we can just leave it in and it'll just keep on spreading.
Each of our rows is about 30 feet long and about 30 inches wide.
The first thing we planted in the year 2020, this year, was our peas. And those you can plant in the winter time. We planted them right in the middle when we had a little bit of snow on the ground. We didn't get that much snow this year, but it was very frosty, and they did fantastic. They're still doing fantastic. We haven't had any peas actually come out yet. It's still kind of chilly here. These are our peas. These are, I believe, are the blush peas from Baker Creek. And we planted them sometime around February. Jason put up these cattle panels, and it's just basically one cattle panel put up with T-posts. There's 4 T-posts holding it together, and it makes an excellent trellis for things that like to climb, like these peas right now, and then eventually our cucumbers and beans. Last year we did our pumpkin on one of these, and it worked out fantastic. We like to use these shade cloths because they help keep out the insects, and it keeps our leafy greens a little more shaded in the summertime. And it helps if we have a sudden frost. It helps keep the frost off of the plants too. It's cold. So everything here we planted in March, whether we direct seeded in the ground or we grew from the greenhouse. In this bed, we've got some salad greens, Butter Crunch, Butter King, romaine, and Paris Island lettuce. And here we have our red oryx spinach, which happens to be my new favorite spinach. It's just so colorful and so vibrant, and it tastes very delicious, very similar to spinach. It almost has like an apple-y flavor. And here we have some more salad greens, Butter Crunch lettuce, some kale, and some more salad greens here. And in this bed here, we have our beautiful purple bok choy. And here we've got some Chinese cabbage, which struggled a little bit in the beginning. Something was eating it. So what I did was dust it with diatomaceous earth, and it seemed to help, but I think it needs another dusting soon. There. We've got some more kale here. And here we started cilantro from seed. We direct seeded here, and it's doing really, really well. And these are Easter egg radishes. They grow really fast, so if you're looking for something that grows really fast, we planted these March 18th, and they're just about ready. I mean, you can eat them now, or you can wait till they get a little bit bigger, and they're very mild in taste. I like to plant things pretty close together, so that way we save room, and there's not a chance for weeds to grow in between the plants. So I've got some broccoli here, some Swiss chard here, and some collards here, sown in right next to the Easter egg radishes, and they're all pretty close together. When they grow, there won't be too much room for weeds to grow in between. This is our red mammoth cabbage that we actually started in the greenhouse early March, and we transplanted them a few weeks ago right here into the garden. I absolutely love spinach, so I always feel like we can never plant enough spinach. So this is doing great, and what I find with spinach is that you have to harvest the leaves to tell the plant to produce more. Because if you just leave the plant, it doesn't do so well, but when you start harvesting the leaves, it tells the plant to make more leaves. And so that's kind of like a little quick tip on spinach. And here in this row, I've labeled this my onion row. So I've got onions that I started from little bulb seeds or starters, and those are the big onions that you can see here. They're like little bulbs that you can purchase from a farm, and you just drop the bulbs right into the ground and they'll grow really fast. And as a divider to tell me where I've stopped, because sometimes when you plant seeds, it's hard to remember where you've sown something and then where you haven't sown something else. I've planted my yarrow. I've had a lot of yarrow in my garden, so I just divided it up, and hopefully these will bloom into beautiful flowers that we can harvest during the year. And then the rest, I have some beautiful leeks that were grown from seed. I've got leeks and onions throughout this whole row that I've started from seed. If you're wondering what these plants are growing amongst the onions and throughout the garden, this is lamb's quarter, and it's actually edible. It's a weed, but it's actually edible, and it's from the same family as the spinach family. And it's also known as goose's foot because it's in the shape of a goose foot. And it's very delicious. It's supposed to help you with allergies. It's more nutritious than spinach, and it's just beneficial for you all the way around. We leave these lamb's quarter plants in the ground and harvest from them early spring, but once they get too big, we have to rip them out because they will almost become impossible to rip out of the garden, and they'll take up so much room. So we eat them young, and then we uproot them, and then we can just feed them to the pigs. And in this row is my root row. I'm growing radish and turnips and beets and carrots right in this row. I've got more Easter egg radishes. This is the daikon radish. This is a Chinese red radish. And we've got lots of carrots. I may have sprinkled in a few onions and leeks right in between the varieties of carrots. We absolutely love eating beets, and growing them is great too because the leaves are edible as well as the roots. This is actually our first time growing this. This is a Hinoa Kabu turnip from Baker Creek Seeds, and I believe they should be just about ready. We sowed them in March. We direct seeded here. Oh. Look at that. So excited about these radishes. These are turnips. So excited about these turnips and radishes. If you happen to see these sprinkled throughout our garden, these are sunflowers. They're volunteer sunflowers from last year's plant. So we had sunflowers sprinkled down our garden last year, and they dropped their seeds, and this year all the seeds have just come up, and we've had to transplant some of them that were in the way, but for the most part we've left them here, and they're going to grow new sunflowers. And here we have another covered row. We're growing some cabbages and some cauliflower and broccoli right under the row cover. And like I've mentioned before, I like to plant some things as ground cover. So I've got some lettuces here that are going to act as ground cover and help keep the weeds away because the ground does like to be covered. And in this section, instead of lettuce, I chose arugula, and it's doing really well. So you can see the arugula is growing in between these heads of cabbages, and it'll keep the ground nice and covered. We have different varieties of cabbage. Here's a Chinese cabbage and red rock cabbage. And in this section, I planted some dill as the ground cover. And here in this next row and a half, we've got our potatoes that are already showing their greens, which means there's potatoes in there. And we planted these from potatoes that we chitted and sprouted ourselves from organic potatoes that we bought from the grocery store. And we just sprouted them right in our house in a cardboard box, and then we cut them up and planted them right into the ground. And as you can see, our garden is full on this side and pretty bare on this side because we started on one end of our garden. We started around March, and as we are now in May, we are ready to plant some of the warmer weather crops. We're going to plant them as soon as we have our last frost, and we're going to get them in the ground, whether we do direct seed or some of the starts that are in the greenhouse, and we'll plant them in these empty rows. And in this little patch here, this is oregano, and it smells absolutely wonderful, and I love growing oregano. It's pretty easy. Once this plant gets so big, I'm going to take out part of the plant and repot it. And just like the pot I showed you in our greenhouse, and it will grow really well, and you can give it away as a gift to a friend, or you can plant it in some other area in your property or your garden. Throughout our garden, we have sprinkled in some flowers that are they're volunteer flowers that are popping up from last year's garden. We've got cosmos, calendula, sunflowers, and marigolds, and this is going to help Having flowers in your garden is going to help with pollination. It's going to help bring the bees into your garden and help pollinate all the flowers on all of your vegetables. This is my lemon balm plant that I bought last year from the big box store, and it was just a tiny little plant, and it's turned into a giant plant. This is actually a third of what it had turned into. This plant does really well. I actually had to remove some of it, put it in pots, give some away to friends, and we actually harvested so many leaves and we turned it into tea. We love drinking lemon balm tea. It is very soothing and relaxing, and it just has so many medicinal benefits to it. So we love lemon balm. That's one of our absolute favorites. Now this is a new addition to our growing food system here on our homestead. These are our onion beds, and I'm so excited. They're just new, just as of like this week. We dug out terraces up on our hill where we couldn't get our mower on, and instead of grass, we're gonna be growing more food. Jason had built me these raised beds after I terraced the hill, and we filled it with soil, and we dropped in these little onion starts. And we bought these onion starts from a farm. Actually, we were gifted some of these onion starts from a friend, and we also purchased more so we can fill these beds filled with onions. And after these onions are going to be harvested in the fall time, this is going to be the new home of our garlic. And so our garlic, we can plant much more garlic here than down there. And it's all just about utilizing more of your land that otherwise would have just been all hill and all grass that we couldn't even get the mower on. And now we're going to be able to turn it into food for our family. And now we are up here on the hill away from the main garden, and I want to show you my herb garden next. But first I want to tell you that your garden doesn't have to be all in one spot. We have our main garden down there and our onions here on the hill, and up here by my kitchen door I have growing my herbs all in pots. In this pot I've got some rosemary, peppermint, thyme, lemon thyme, which smells absolutely amazing. It smells like lemon and thyme. And I've got some oregano here. In these pots I've got some chamomile that Penelope has helped me plant, some basil, and more oregano. We use a lot of oregano. Now I like growing my herbs in pots because I discovered that I can keep them growing throughout the year if I just transfer the pot into the greenhouse for the winter or inside my house during the winter time, and they will survive.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this garden tour video, this early season garden tour video, and make sure you watch the other garden tour videos that are part of this collaboration with Homesteaders of America. We also hope that these videos can inspire you guys to grow more food and just start growing food. And hopefully this will give you some good ideas on how to do that. But we appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you guys next time.